Joseph didn't believe Mary. Would you? Reading between the lines of that pre-birth narrative, one might imagine the conversations that they had, the emotions felt, mutual anger, absolute shock, hurt at the things that were said. It can't have been a happy time, that journey to Bethlehem. What is most incredible for me is that they actually both ended up making that journey. Their relationship survives, transformed into something completely different in ways unimaginable. We all have things that we are told that just cannot be true by what we think of our superior powers of deduction. Later, we find out we're wrong. This is a miscalculation that every one of us participates in. It's not just a man thing, which some people might say sometimes. There are other times when we do get it wrong because of the darker, imperfect side of our nature, our cultural mindset, our prejudice, and perhaps in this case, sexism. How could they possibly be right? And we are caught out because we willfully cannot countenance it. I don't believe it. Pull the other way. Sort of like, do you recall that story of Jonah and the whale? As Jonah finally is forced to do what he was supposed to do and go and convert the people of Nineveh, he does that. And then he goes and sits under a tree and sulks. And he said, I'd rather die than those people become godly. It's that sort of mindset we all have at times, for different reasons and in different situations. A different story here with Mary's pregnancy, but willful ignorance is at play. And her being a woman doesn't help. She can't be believed. It can't be true. It must be the most outlandish cover-up for bad behavior. God did it. We all know stories of inexplicable miracles. Recoveries from illness, rescue from situations that should have been complete disasters. Some of these things we know personally. We have experienced them. Things that other people would say, it's not possible. There are directions we have been led, almost against our will, because they seem so implausible. And all of this we may know as God's intervention into our lives. But how do you explain it to somebody? So often our talk of Jesus or of God is met with skeptical or indulgently tolerant looks which say, that's fine, now let's talk about something else. Joseph doesn't believe Mary's story. He's an honorable man, though. He wouldn't want to see her harmed, though he is, no doubt, angry. Joseph needs a deeper understanding. He needs God's intervention. In the skeptical culture in which we live, if you think of it, there are a few vulnerable times when people are actually more open to God's presence and action than other times. For me as a priest, funerals certainly are a place I rarely get criticized, perhaps never, for talking about God. There are many situations having to do with the beauty of nature that catch people unawares and they say, oh God, it's beautiful. And still Christmas is a place where we can talk about Jesus, and especially the baby Jesus, and get away with it. When we dispense with that hard, rational core, or surface, dispense with some of our prejudices and those superior, no-nonsense powers that we have, that gives God an opening. Could it be? The explanation of Mary's virgin birth is a story as implausible in the time she lived as it is now. Yet, it is to be believed. And Joseph is honorable. Not because he would have dismissed her quietly, but because he set aside his prejudices and believed the impossible. He needed the dream to help him, but it was his choice. Huge swathes of the earth, of the world, have followed in this belief. Even those who would not normally consider such things. These are called liminal situations in our lives. When you say something is liminal, it's like you're standing on a threshold between the everyday life you're living in and that something beyond. That's something that's deeper. You can't quite grasp onto it, but you know it's there. God is at work. There's a funny phrase that people who are into Celtic spirituality, they call it the thin place. This place where heaven and earth seem to almost meet sometimes. These are important times in our lives. We don't get them every day. But when we do, it's up to us to pay attention to them. They're like holy windows into something beyond our everyday existence. So we prepare to celebrate Christmas, to bring to our celebrations all those times in our lives, even ones we may not now remember, when we entertained the impossible, when we believed, when our common sense told us to say no. It is often those times that have made all the difference in our lives. As we prepare to celebrate Christmas and invite Jesus into our hearts and homes, it is good to recall these events that led up to that journey to Bethlehem. Because it begins with a woman who wasn't believed and a man who would not believe. But all that changed, and all our lives have changed as well.